Hello and welcome to Speedway High School from the shadows of IMS. My name is Brian Haenchen, joined by Neddenriep, Akeem, Glaspie. It's cold, but we're here. It is football weather. Boys, the playoffs are here. I know Kyle's excited. Akeem, how are you feeling about the whole thing?
I'm good. I'm trying to stay warm right now. But like I said, it's football weather. We're football tough, so we're gonna tough it out for the viewers.
I don't like you speaking on my behalf in that department. I'm a big old chicken. Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. Clark wanted to golf today, so that's the toughest guy around right there.
Clark was upset when we got a message saying the golf course was closed, even after. Clark, it's going to be snowing out. I have snow gear. It's fine. So that's where Clark's at mentally. He's digging it. I'm hating it. Akeem is football tough, and Kyle, well, he's Kyle. Is
that good or bad? I don't know. It's something.
Rain, snow, Kyle's there with the knowledge. A few big games last week, but the two that you guys covered, I think the marquee games of the week. Akeem, let's start with yours because it has implications for down the road. That being Brownsburg HSE. Brownsburg jumps out to their lead. Their starting quarterback gets injured, correct? And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, like I was saying when we were walking in here, it's kind of a tale of two halves, so to say. Brownsburg their offense was moving well. They were up 21-14. Whitaker, he hands off for a touchdown on his final play. He's limping. I posted the video. He's trying to motion to the sideline that he's okay, but he's clearly in a lot of pain. He hands off. Cheryl scores a touchdown, and then on the following play, the backup comes in, and it was what's his name?
Jake Dunn.
Jake Dunn. Jake Dunn. He actually looked really well on his opening drive. He had a long completion to Corey Smith, and they connect in the end zone for a touchdown to go up 28-14. And those were the final points that Brownsburg scored. HSE outscored Brownsburg 17-0 in the second half. Dunn fumbles the opening snap of the third quarter, and it just kind of went downhill from there. They were kind of forced to be one-dimensional. Cheryl and Marcus couldn't get anything going really into that final drive, Brownsburg's final drive. And that final drive, it stalled because they couldn't punch it in. They have to go for a field goal, and that field goal is blocked, and that kind of sealed the game for HSE. So, like I said, it was a tale of two halves. With Whitaker, Brownsburg looked good. Everything was on time, and the offense was running smoothly, and that the mobility that Whitaker had is also key for the running game, because that kind of went away with Dunn in the game. They couldn't really, the option kind of stuff that they do, the read options weren't really there, so that slowed them down. And again, credit to HSE, because I don't want to take anything away from them. Bradle and Hamilton, the connection that they had was great. I know Kyle wrote on Hamilton earlier before that week, and yeah, everything that Kyle said was correct. He's a very big kid, but he's not a possession receiver. He has a lot of athletic ability that shows his basketball background. The jump balls, the contested catches that he's able to get were really impressive, and he's everything of a Power 5 receiver that Kyle was saying. I know he doesn't have those offers yet, but I would expect those to come soon. So credit to HSC. They definitely it was a kind of a statement win for that program. Talking to them after the game, it's like, well, no more HS Easy, no more Hamilton Southeastern. And I was like, well, who was saying that? And then he's like, well, mostly, no,
you guys are.
They're like mostly Fishers. But I was like, oh, okay. Well, I never heard that. But, that was a big win for Coach Kelly and the guys. And I don't see why they wouldn't be, Class 6A contenders, especially with the status of Whitaker, because, again, Jaden was on the sideline, ice on his foot and ankle area, and he was on crutches for the entirety of the second half. So, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I feel like he would definitely at least be compromised against Ben Davis. So that's going to be a really interesting kind of a development to watch, because Dunn looked really impressive for a drive. And then it was odd that he came out in the second half and looked a little bit like a little rattled, a little over his head at times. So maybe with this time to prepare, that he can get kind of a good offense going and a good flow, because Brownsburg has weapons outside of the running backs as well. Corey Smith is a very talented receiver as well. So I'm interested to see the ramifications of that injury and what Brownsburg can do with or without Whitaker.
Kyle, your takeaways from the fallout, I guess, both injury terms and just the result of the game for HSC and Brownsburg moving forward.
Yeah, like Akeem said, Donovan Hamilton, one of the better receivers in that junior class, one of the better players in that junior class, and he doesn't have any offers yet. It's partly because he plays AAU, so he didn't get to go to the camps and the stuff where you get seen on campuses and stuff like that. So I think that's the only thing really holding him back from getting those offers, because Purdue, IU, Notre Dame, other schools have brought him on campus, and I know they like him, obviously, or they wouldn't. And Tom Allen's been at games. There's been other coaches at games. So, obviously he's got a bright future ahead of him. But, yeah, I agree with Akeem. this is a team that deserves a lot of credit for going 9-0 against the schedule they play, and it shows what Michael Kelly's been building there, that confidence as a program, because there has been that maybe that perception from the outside of the past of them not being able to beat the toughest teams on their schedule always, and we'll find out. They still have to beat Fishers again. Most likely they have to beat Carmel or Westfield again to get to the state championship game, probably Crown Point or Carroll in the semi-state. So there are bigger games ahead, but to beat Brownsburg, even though with Whitaker being out, says a lot for where they are as a program, I think. On the other side of it, I know Brownsburg, they're a different team without Whitaker. I mean, clearly. And you bring Jake Dunn in the game, who doesn't have a lot of varsity experience at this point. That's a tough, that's a tough situation to come into. And I've heard through the grapevine, I think they're going to do everything they can to get him ready to play. And like Akeem said, I don't know, what percent will he be? I have no idea. It's hard to know with an ankle and that sort of thing. But it's just, they're going to have him be able to do something against Ben Davis. That Ben Davis team, even with him, they were within a touchdown of beating them the first time they played him in the first game of the season. So, and Whitaker didn't have, not one of his best games. He can play better, but even still, that shows you how close Ben Davis is anyway. So, they're going to have him out there, I think, to have a chance in that one, even though they've got great running backs and, really a great offensive line. They're going to be able to run the ball on Ben Davis too, but you need that other threat of being able to throw. And I would assume he's going to try to play, and we'll see about that. But that obviously compromises their chances, even if he is a little bit injured. But it sets up really. I mean, if Brownsburg would have won, we'd be saying, well, they're the clear number one, they're the favorite. Whitaker's not hurt, so that kind of throws a wrench into everything. With who knows? I mean, I feel like it's wide open right now.
Who does Brownsburg open with in the playoffs? Is it Ben Davis?
Yep, first game.
That's another unfortunate byproduct of not seeding this thing, because if you're Brownsburg, you open up with the lowest seed in that sectional. You have an opportunity to rest your quarterback potentially, or you use him in a more limited role. It affects how you're able to use him and keep the kid healthy, and it sets up for down the road whereas, who knows what happens against Ben Davis, even if they do win, because you still have a quarterback who didn't have that full extra week to recover and all that, and it just... Again, I know we keep beating the drum, but it's so silly that it's not seen. It's really frustrating, and again, like, it's not just the best teams playing the worst teams. It's just how much the best teams, in Ben Davis too, obviously, he's being punished for playing a tough schedule. There's no reward for it. There's no point to winning or losing during the regular season. It all matters at the end there. And in the other sports too, it's even more asinine, just because you consider how short the seasons are for some of them, and then again, no benefits to winning or losing, and we see it play out the way it does. But that's neither here nor there, I suppose.
Well, and something that's not brought up often that I think about too is you get the extra weeks of practice, the time just to practice and develop, even in practices, So Ben Davis or Brownsburg will be done on October 28th, and even by having a great season, they don't get to continue practicing. That's once your season's over, you don't get to practice anymore. So that's another thing. You get you should be rewarded, I think, for having a good season and getting extra practice, kind of like the bowl game, that sort of thing. But that's probably down the list on the reasons to see. But it's another thing I've talked to coaches about too. Is man, we're out by not even November. We were 9-1. We're out of the.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's the way it is in soccer too. Where this year you had the two number one teams in the state were bounced, or top two teams in the state are bounced in the early rounds with HSE girls and the Zionsville boys, and the Zionsville girls got bounced in sectionals too. It's befuddling, it's baffling, and I wish something would change, but in talking to people, it doesn't seem like there's any appetite, at least not enough appetite to change it, so that's unfortunate.
And one more kind of bit of irony that Kyle mentioned to us earlier, that Brownsburg is going to its backup, but that backup used to be Ben Davis' starting quarterback and Thomas Kotkowski. So that's a little bit of irony that, in an alternate universe, it could be Thomas Kotkowski's time to shine, and he's playing against Brownsburg now in the opening week. So that's just kind of some football irony there, so to say.
That's a good way to bring it full circle. I like that.
We can talk more about that next week. That'll be interesting how all that plays out.
That'll be fun that's a fun storyline. Mm-hmm. Akeem had the game, I think, with the most long-term implications. Kyle, you might have just had the game of the week with the finish that you had there between Cathedral and Center Grove. I'll let you tell us about what happened there.
Yeah, but it was didn't see it coming. I mean, it was 29-13 Center Grove. They had dominated the second half. Cathedral wasn't playing well. I was sitting up there kind of wondering, like, what's wrong with Cathedral? Maybe that's the story I'm going to write for Monday's column is like, what's going on? They just weren't playing well, weren't moving the ball. Some interceptions that a couple of them weren't necessarily O'Neill's fault, but the first one was the second and third were sort of tip pass, tip type of things. But it was Center Grove's about to go in. They're on the 1 yard line, 29-13, and 4th and 1. They don't get it, and then you're thinking, well, even still, Cathedral's backed up to their 9 minutes to go. They're still in pretty good shape. Well, Cathedral goes right down the field, scores. They get a stop on the next possession, block a punt for a touchdown. All of a sudden, it's 29-26, and you're like, man, this is a game now. It's on. Center Grove goes back down the field, and it looks like their running game really cranked up with Coyle and Thomason both in the second half. Thomason, he would have been the story of the game. He had an interception, a punt return for a touchdown, ran for close to 100 yards. Just had all around. He had a great game, and unfortunately, he becomes a non-story because of the way the game ended. But I thought he played great. But Cathedral ends up getting a stop. They get the ball back, and then 4th and 10, O'Neill hits Jerron Tibbs over the middle, and it was just a laser, a great pass. I mean, I watched it back on video a few times, and he put it just as Tibbs was breaking his route. He hadn't even really broke yet, but just put it on a line drive. It was 25 yards in the air on a rope. I mean, and Tibbs caught it, got about 33 yards, I think it was. The next play, O'Neill steps up in the pocket, hits David Ayers over the top on that post pattern. That was sort of a jump ball sort of situation in the end zone. Ayers, 6'4", comes down with it, and that's basically it. They get another stop, interception basically on Center Grove's next play, and then they run the little pop pass. Center Grove was trying to use their timeouts, so they ran another play. Wooten then takes it to the house. So big Brandon Wooten, just such a, he had a great game as well. And again, he was probably not, I probably didn't feature him enough either, but did talk to him after the game. But, he ends up going 60 yards for a touchdown, and that's 40-29. It ends up out of nowhere, 27 points in the fourth quarter in 9 minutes. And it was really something that you don't see happen to Center Grove ever almost. I mean, that the way they were running the ball, I was like, man, this is like vintage Center Grove. They cranked it up. Defense was getting stops. They dominate second halves a lot of times with the running game through the years. And then it was just weird. I mean, it's like I said, you don't see that happen very often. Credit Cathedral. They came away, and talking to O'Neill and Bill Peoples, they felt like, man, we didn't even play. We played poorly for a good chunk of that game. So we feel like there's more out there. If we can play a better game. I'm sure Center Grove obviously feels the same way. And honestly, I think if both teams play again, I think both teams will play better, and it'll be even a better game. But that was a great game anyway. And it was just a great it's the last 3 years it's been a really fun rivalry. Those teams really get after each other. There was a little jaw jacking in the line after the game. Nothing terrible, but what you expect. And I thought it was just a good game that kind of sets, and like we said earlier, makes things more interesting as we head into the sectional now. And Eric Moore was not that displeased, by the way. Yeah. He was like, he's one of the chip on the shoulder type guys. Like we needed. Now I'm sure he didn't want to lose, obviously, but maybe this is what we needed. Maybe kids need to feel that before we get started.
Yeah, gives them a sense of what, how it feels when things go wrong like that. And two, I mean, it'll be fascinating going into a potential rematch, just the mental side of things. Like you said, Cathedral didn't play well. They found a way to win. Center Grove let one get away and didn't play well enough to win at the end, but played well enough to win at the beginning. So it'll be a fascinating chess match on the mental side of things moving forward.
It felt like Center Grove figured something out defensively in the third quarter, and they weren't, because Cathedral's running game is sort of hit and miss a little bit, and they were just playing the pass, and they defended really well up until when Danny O'Neill had to make plays. He made great passes, and he's got great receivers. I think Akeem talked about it last week. Is Wooten, O'Neill, Tibbs, and Ayers, all big targets, and they got another tight end. Name's escaping me right now, but they've got 4 guys who are like 6'4" or taller who, they're hard to cover. And I thought Center Grove, for the most part, did a pretty good job until the fourth quarter.
For both of you guys, any other games jump out to you from last week before we get to picks?
We mentioned before we started talking the Carmel LC game. Carmel bounced back from that Warren Central loss and got right against LC 27-7, and that was more in line, I think, with maybe the Carmel we expected last week against Warren. So defensively, they're really good. I mean, they are one of the better defensive teams, and that passing game, Reese Bellin and Jack Kazmierzak got hooked up a few times in that game to keep the offense going, and so that was one that kind of stuck out to me. I thought that'd be a little closer of a game.
Akeem, anything?
No, I think Kyle wrapped it up. I think Kyle wrapped it up well. That was kind of the biggest one that stood out to me last week.
I feel like the players, we're just kind of ready to get to sectionals at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everybody, once the draw comes out and we had our show, everybody's sort of like, all right, let's go. So that's where we are now for sure.
We have some unfortunate news to pass along, and that is that Akeem last week went 7-3, which is respectable. That's a great record. Unfortunately, Kyle went 8-2, so Kyle has retaken the lead going into the playoffs. Akeem, we're excited to hear how you'll respond to this, but Kyle, as the winner last week, I'll let you have the floor first.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to say too much. We still have some season to go, but I think the rightful leader, after letting Akeem get a little bit of a lead, once late October, we start to find out who the real victor is.
Akeem, your response.
Like I was saying, it's a long season. We've got several weeks ahead. Kyle is it's like the tortoise in the hare. I feel like Kyle's kind of feeling himself a little bit. So I'm just gonna sneak up behind, slow and steady, and by the end of the season, we'll see who the real winner is.
That's a good analogy, but I feel it's a little muddled. I can't decide who should be the tortoise in this analogy.
I thought I was the tortoise because I was behind all year.
Yeah, I know, because Akeem raced out to the lead, but now Akeem's the tortoise.
Well, no, Kyle has the lead now, so that makes him the hare.
Okay, so this is a fluid metaphor.
Yes.
Okay, I like it. That's wonderful. Well, it's Neddentober. Hopefully it'll lead to Glaspie. We'll work on those. We'll workshop them. We'll make some shirts and sell those. Let's start off next week with New Palestine, 9-0 at Mount Vernon, 6-3, a rivalry game to start off sectionals. Kyle, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, that's actually the game I'll be at Friday night, so looking forward to that one. I mean, it was 42-6 last time. I mean, in Mount Vernon, the defending state champs, they still have guys who played on that team, on this year's team, like George Buren and Eli Bridenthal, and they obviously have a lot of pride. But at the same token, they've struggled to stop teams this year. They've given up a lot of points on average. And this New Pal team is just a juggernaut. Even though this is a rivalry, and I expect Mount Vernon to come out and really, give everything they got and throw everything they can at New Pal, I just have a hard time seeing New Pal really being able to be stopped. And you look at what they've done all year. And Isaiah Thacker and Blaine Nunnally, we haven't talked much about them because we talked about Tippett and their offensive line and Grayson Thomas at running back, but Thacker has almost 700 receiving yards and Nunnally almost 500 receiving yards. So, and obviously Tippett's got to get him the ball, but those two, that's sort of a difference from this year's New Pal maybe to other years where they've got these playmaking receivers, so they can move the ball ground, air. They've got a good defense. So with all that said, I'm definitely taking New Pal on this one.
Akeem?
Yeah, no, I think Kyle pretty much summed it up great. Just from the two times that I've seen New Pal, just a complete team at every facet of the game. Offense, defense, all three levels, passing and running on offense. So yeah, I'm going New Pal as well.
Guerin Catholic 5-4, deceptive 5-4. Obviously with the schedule that they play, traveling to Oak Hill, which is undefeated at 9-0. Akeem?
Yeah, Oak Hill runs a triple option rushing attack, and that can always throw a wrench into your plans when you have to prepare for that. Obviously, they have some time to do it, but their running back Kyle Turanchik.
Turanchik,
yeah. 100. I apologize, Kyle. 190 yards per game and a whopping 35 rushing touchdowns heading into the season or heading into this game. So clearly they can get it done on the ground, but at the same time. Malcolm House from Guerin has been kind of adding some stability at quarterback for Guerin, so I'm going Guerin.
Kyle?
Yeah, I watched. So yesterday I was doing some sectional preview stuff, and I watched Turanchik in that offense, and he's really fast. I mean, he looks like the real deal as a running back. But they don't play the schedule that Guerin does overall, So, I mean, this is a cool thing for Oak Hill, play at home, and I'm sure their crowd, in a little town is going to be really excited. And I think this is going to be a close game. But Akeem mentioned Malcolm House has come in, done a nice job for Ryan Zimmerman since he got hurt and is out for the season. And then Will Fremion, the receiver, is almost at 1,000 receiving yards against a really good schedule. So I'm going to take Guerin too. But like I said, this will be a fun game to see. And I like these offenses like Oak Hill's got, where it's something a little different than the spread. And I was just kind of wasting time watching their offense. It's kind of fun to watch. But I'll take Guerin.
Next game for us, Lebanon, 6-3 at Mooresville, 7-2. Kyle, who are you picking there?
Yeah, so this has been a rivalry game over the years, like the first or second game of the year going back probably almost 30 years. They didn't play this year, though. The series ended, so this kind of revival of what we used to see with that rivalry. And Lebanon's done a nice job this year. Jeff Smock, their coach, this will be the first time they've won back-to-back winning seasons since I think it was 15 and 16, I believe. So it's been a while. They're on solid footing. And if you look at their top players, their quarterback, Landon Fouts, is a senior, but a lot of the guys who are major contributors are sophomores and juniors. So they should be good again next year. And all that said, I'm picking Mooresville because they have Nick Patterson on their team. And I think they're going to start getting some guys back in the lineup here. They've really leaned on Nick a lot. He's got 1,000 rushing yards this year. In addition to everything he does passing. So, that's a lot to lean on one guy. And I think this is going to be a good game. I don't think, Lebanon plays a schedule that's maybe not as heavy as like a mid-state conference, but they play in the Sagamore, which has got good teams like Western Boone, Tri-West, Danville, teams like that. So it's going to be a good game, I think, but I like Mooresville to move on.
Akeem?
Yeah, I agree. Kyle, again, Rep summed it up very well. Nick Patterson's having a great season and getting it done through the air and the ground, so it'll be hard to pick against them, so I'm going Mooresville.
Akeem, Tri-West 7-2 is traveling to rival Danville at 3-6.
Yeah, these teams met earlier in the season. I believe Tri-West needed 15 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game. They're kind of trending in two different directions. Tri-West has 3 wins in a row. Danville is actually on a 2-game losing streak. So with that being said, I'm going Tri-West.
Kyle?
Yeah, I agree. I think Tri-West is the team here. Danville's, I think, lost, 2 in a row, and I think 4 out of 5 now. So, they're young in some spots, but again, this a lot of these games that we talk about are like New Powell, Mount Vernon. This one, rivalry games between neighboring towns, and that usually results in close games and a lot of emotion. And I think this is going to be similar. I don't think Danville's going to let Tri-West just run away with it. They only lost by 3 during the season, but I think Tri-West, that experience of going to the semi-state last year, they know how to kick it up a notch, and I think they're going to move on.
Heritage Christian 5-3 travels to Northeastern 8-1. First of all, where's Northeastern? And second, Kyle, what's your pick?
Northeastern's over if you're going to Richmond, sort of over that way. So that's a long trip, and normally these sectional games aren't. Some of them are, but normally they're not this long of a trip. But and I had this written down. Northeastern has a quarterback, Carson Terrell, almost 2,000 passing yards and 27 touchdowns. So, that's obviously how they move the ball well, is through the air. But so does Heritage Christian. So it's sort of one of those games. Luke Valerio, 800 receiving yards. That's almost half of their total passing reception yards. So, that should be a fun game. Hopefully the weather's nice. Those teams can air it out, and it should be a high-scoring game. I'm going to take the road team, Heritage Christian, to win. I think this game might decide who wins that sectional. These look like the 2 best teams in that group in 2A. So neither one of them have won one in a little while. So this will be interesting to see who wins this game.
Akeem?
Yeah, like Kyle was saying, we got a talented quarterback on the other side, and Kyle Antoine, obviously, at Heritage Christian is another talented quarterback, a senior. That's kind of what you want in these type of games. And Valerio and the other receiver, Christian Dora, is also having a great season as well. So I'm going Heritage as well.
Speedway 5-4. That's where we are right now, but they're going to be on the road this Friday. They're going to North Montgomery, also 5-4. Akeem?
Yeah, and again, like we said, this game, similar to Brownsburg, could be about injuries. Speedway's last 2 losses came without DJ McPherson. I know he might play. He's battling a collarbone clavicle injury. So if he plays, I really like their chances. Without them, I would imagine this is a toss-up. But I'm going to think that, in a winner-go-home situation, McPherson's going to want to be out there. So I'm going Speedway.
Kyle?
I thought we might differ on this one, but we're not. I took Speedway too. McPherson, I talked to him a little bit over text, and he said he's going to try to play if he gets clearance, basically. So it's not up to him, obviously, completely, but yeah, they need him out there. But they also, they're a team that's got a good passing game with Carter Watson's been pretty good all year as a junior. But you need a player like him out there, I think, if you're going to have a chance. In North Montgomery, they're a defensive team. Like they hold you down pretty well defensively. They beat Danville 8-6 last week. So that's how they want to play you. They want to run the ball and make it hard on you. And I thought I had their leading tackler down here, but they're really a good team defensively. So that'll be a struggle. And Speedway, they're playing up a class this year after being 2A. They're going to 3A, so this is a little bit of a jump for them as one of the smallest 3A schools in the state. But I'll take the Spark Plugs. We're out here at Speedway, so we can't really pick against them.
Pendleton Heights 5-4 travels to Greenfield Central 6-3. Kyle, who are you picking in that one?
Yeah, I had Greenfield in this one. It was 35-0 early in the year. And they ran for 400 yards in that game. I think Pendleton Heights has been playing a lot better. I don't think it's going to be a complete mismatch this time around. But if you give up 400 rushing yards, I kind of question if you're going to be able to stop, Greenfield Central, and they do it really well. They've been all year. They've been a good running team, and I just think the way they've played for the majority of the season, I think they're going to be okay in this one.
Akeem?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, their offense is good, and the defense has been playing very well all season long, allowing only 18 points per game. Leading tackler Jacob Hinton and Brad Allen is another. He was kind of a preseason super team guy, so very talented on defense. So I'm going Greenfield.
Akeem, we got Brebeuf Jesuit 5-3 traveling to Northview 6-3.
Yeah, we talk about passing attacks, and this one's kind of been in transition with Nolan Buckman moving to receiver. But when I saw Brebeuf play, I mean, I like kind of the trickery that they can have with Buckman at receiver, lining up at running back with some reverses and kind of option passes that they do with Maverick Gusky at quarterback now. So I like Brebeuf.
Yeah, I want to mention Finn Walters for Brebeuf. 9.5 sacks this year. So that defense is really gets after people, and they play a good schedule. I know Akeem, you saw them play Cathedral. They played some really good teams all year long. Northview, traditionally they've been a strong program here the last several years. Kyle Cote, their quarterback, has 1,300 rushing yards, so they like to run the quarterback a lot. But Brebeuf, just the stronger team. I'm going to take Brebeuf to win. Move on.
Kyle, South Putnam travels to Lutheran. Putnam comes in at 7-2. Lutheran obviously undefeated. Yeah,
South Putnam's one of the best 1A teams in the state, and they still may be they may be blown out in this game. Not to say they have had a great season, a strong program, but Lutheran just seems so far ahead of everybody in 1A. Maybe Adams Central up north, maybe a team that can hang with them. Maybe Covenant Christian, who knows them pretty well. They could see them later on in the sectional. But, man, I mean, it's just been week in and week out. They're beating teams that are 2A and 3A. I mean, it's amazing and easily. So, other than Cecina, which was a close game. But other than that, man, they have just been putting it on people. So, have a hard time picking against Lutheran.
Yeah, again, Kyle summed it up well, and even that Cecina game, Jackson Willis got it done when he needed to, with a lot of great throws. I mentioned before he's been one of the most impressive quarterbacks that I've seen, regardless of class. So I'm going Lutheran as well.
Again, we rounded out here with Park Tudor 6-3, traveling to Clinton Prairie 5-4.
Yeah. Park Tudor, DJ Gordon. We talked about Nick Patterson earlier. Dual threat quarterbacks. He can get it done with his arm and his legs. I really like the season he's having, so I'm going Park Tudor.
Kyle?
Yeah, he had a big game last week. I forget his numbers offhand, but had a huge game passing wise. Clinton Prairie's been a team that they have, I think, lost 4 of their last 5 coming into this one. I think I'm going to take Park Tudor. I think they're going to potentially have a chance to win this sectional, which they haven't done in, I think, 2005, if I remember correctly. So, their sectional changed a little bit. They don't have Lutheran in there anymore, so that makes it more doable for them. But I like Park Tudor, and that means I'm going to be ahead next week by 1.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert from Neddenriep, but we can confirm that Kyle is projected to have maintain a 1-game lead going into next week.
I thought that might happen because really this week you don't have any 5A, 6A.
Yeah.
And some of these, I tried to pick the 10 best games, but there's just a lot of it looks pretty pretty easy to pick the games other than Speedway North Montgomery, but we both picked Speedway.
Little room for parity there this week. We'll see what happens. The boys could come out of this undefeated, or they might not win a single game, which would be kind of more impressive than getting them all right, if I'm being
That'd be
honest.
amazing if we went 0-10.
That would be kind of remarkable. Kind of want to see it happen, actually. Before we get out of here and back into the warmth, Akeem, what do you have coming up this week?
Yeah, so I've got I'm working on a wide array of stuff. I got some wrestling preview stuff, college basketball preview stuff, and Colts at the end of the week. So they're on the road, so no game action, but just some daily stuff coming.
Kyle?
Yeah, we're working on our basketball stuff, as you know, and I know you have stuff this week, actually, for basketball, but we're starting to get that all figured out. I've got a story coming on IPS Shortridge football. Should be out this week, predictions. I got another story. I would want to make sure it happens first, but it should be a good one next week, coming midweek. So, yeah, I mean, and I'll be out at Mount Vernon, New Pal, for that game Friday night. And, yeah, so other stuff, too, that I'm not thinking of offhand, but that's enough.
Oh, and I'll be at Lebanon, Mooresville.
Good stuff, good stuff. We have lots of basketball stuff happening behind the scenes coming for next week for me. On the girls' side, they start in 13 days as the time we record this, which is remarkable that it's here that fast. We'll have that. I'll have a viewer's guide because it's a busy weekend coming up, obviously, with regional volleyball, semi-state soccer. We're going to have Kyle down covering Center Grove Carmel girls, I think. We'll have somebody covering the triple header up in Kokomo on the soccer side. I will be, and then I think Evansville is helping us out with the 3 games. You know what is fun is that 3 Indianapolis area teams travel to Evansville North to play 3 Evansville teams. So just, you couldn't have asked for more neutral sites, obviously, which makes, a ton of sense. Anyway, we'll have that. I'm going to cover some volleyball. I think the nightcap will be in Noblesville, and then during the day I'm probably going to go over to Greenfield Central, check out Yorktown Brownsburg, and then Cathedral Brownsburg, Yorktown Brebeuf. Yorktown Brebeuf will be really good to start the day. And then the evening, I'm expecting that we'll get HSE McCutcheon. So we'll get a match between the 2 best teams in the state to close out the day on Saturday. So we'll have plenty of stuff coming for you from all 3 of us. We thank you all so much for watching, for Clark for getting us on, Speedway for hosting us, and we'll be back with you all next week.